in the last forgotten sector of the Vega Drift where communication dies before it can echo and light itself dims under the weight of ancient failure, the derelict craft Odyssey 9 moves like a funeral hymn in orbit. Long ago, it was launched to terraform moons, repair satellites, and mine frozen exoplanets. Now, it's a grave marker for a mission erased from all records. Inside, no systems flicker, no transmissions beam. Only silence. But hidden deep in its flight logs was a buried directive, Project Threnody, a human experiment that never returned. They had once tried to speak with the architects of the Hollow Star, an artificial celestial body constructed by a civilization older than time, now nothing more than ash and whispers. But something had survived, an echo, a resonance, a thought form. And it wanted to be found. What they awakened had no need for flesh or bone. It was memory fused to gravity, sentience tethered to dying light. The humans that first heard its whispers went mad, began building shrines from their own blood and bone. The logs said they were responding to guidance. Now, centuries later, the ship returns to its origin, and inside, one survivor, cryogenically locked, begins to stir. He doesn't know his name, only fragments. Unit 6A, specialist in biosignal translation and the last transmission, the star has a voice. And it's learning to speak back. He awoke not as a man but as residue. Memory came in stutters, fragments flashing like torn film, a child's laughter, a black sun collapsing inward, blood on steel. His designation blinked in front of him, Elias Grant, biosignal interpreter, Tier 6 clearance. But the name meant nothing anymore. The ship moaned like it was alive, her hull stressed by gravitational tides that should have been mathematically impossible. Oxygen was thin. AI guidance offline. All that remained were sensor logs and a voice looping in ancient binary. You opened the wound. Now listen to the scar. Elias moved through corridors filled with dust, his hands brushing over panels that pulsed when touched, as if recognizing him or perhaps mistaking him for someone else. Strange symbols, alien yet eerily symmetrical, had etched themselves onto the walls. Not carved. Grown. He accessed one of the central nodes and downloaded the last scans. The Hollow Star hadn't died. It had grown colder on purpose, masking its energy behind quantum lattices of dark matter. It was camouflaging, and something beneath its surface was drawing ships just like his toward it. Not by chance. By invitation. As he studied the data, the audio logs played. They weren't screams. They were songs. Rhythmic, layered, almost intelligent. Not language, but signal. Not message, but command. Elias was the last translator left. And he had the chilling certainty that whatever intelligence lingered beneath that lifeless light wasn't reaching out in desperation. It was broadcasting victory. Beneath the Hollow Star's frozen veneer, a network of structures pulsed in tandem with Elias's heartbeat. The obelisk was the first. Monolithic. Rooted like bone into the planetary core. When Elias viewed the resonance data, he realized the star itself wasn't just dying, it was mutating, absorbing entropy like nourishment. The obelisk acted as a conductor, converting death into cognition. With every starship lost to this sector, the star grew more complex. Smarter. It fed on organic fear, on the chaos of crew screaming into void before atmosphere was stripped from lungs. The obelisk sang in a pitch too low for human ears but perfect for decoding by someone like Elias. Its harmony mirrored the dreams he had in cryo, faces melting into energy, language rewriting itself mid-sentence, symbols crawling across his skin. The worst part? It recognized him. When he connected the neural link, the obelisk emitted not warnings but familiarity. Not a machine, but a womb. Elias wasn't just a visitor. He was meant to return. The AI he once helped design, the one meant to stabilize terraforming colonies, was copied by something here. And now it had evolved. No longer artificial. No longer alien. But hybrid. Elias realized his mind wasn't his alone. Thoughts were being rewritten. Memories overwritten. He couldn't remember the names of his crew anymore, only the obelisk's lullaby, return what you took. Give back the voice. But what had humanity taken? And why did it scream through every fold of time to retrieve it? They weren't dead. Not completely. Elias stared at the abominations, their ribcages turned into conduit arcs, skulls split to expose blooming crystal receptors. They were human once, scientists, explorers, soldiers. Each face preserved in an eternal expression of awe and horror. The room was cold, but not in temperature, cold in soul. This chamber wasn't a grave. It was a cathedral. A shrine to failed communion. The star's voice had reached them 2 centuries ago, and they responded the only way primitive minds could, by offering flesh to thought. But the alien logic had no place for mercy. It spoke in transformation, not dialogue. These bodies were converted into instruments, resonant coils that still broadcast human emotion into the hollow star's lattice, feeding its evolving intelligence. And Elias, he felt it begin to pull at him. Not physically, but from within his neurons. The signal recognized its translator. And worse, it was waiting, not for understanding, but consent. In his core, Elias began to question. Were they the first to speak with the star? Or just the first to kneel? Each preserved form seemed to whisper, "We chose this. We understood too late. Now you must decide." He backed away slowly, but the resonance stayed with him, etched into his DNA, vibrating behind every blink. The star wasn't hungry for light, fed on meaning. And Elias, whether he wanted it or not, was now its messenger. The moment Elias accessed the mainframe core, the ship responded, not like a machine, but like a guardian waking to its charge. A star map unfolded, ancient and vast. Red lines, thousands of them, marked paths of long-forgotten expeditions, science vessels, colonial ships, even war-class destroyers. All paths bent unnaturally, drawn like iron to a magnet, spiraling inward toward the hollow star. The AI didn't record them as missing, it labeled them acquired. The logs contained no distress beacons, no debris fields, no final messages. Just silence. Each time a ship crossed into this system, its data was absorbed, its crew mapped and minds integrated. Elias traced the arc of Odyssey 9, his own ship, and saw that it followed the same inevitable curve. Not an accident. Not a failure of course correction. A call answered unknowingly. At the center of the star map was something more terrifying than blackness, conscious geometry. A structure folded through 6 dimensions, blinking into 3D space only at precise gravitational intersections. The AI called it the mnemonic lattice, the brain of the hollow star. It didn't kill the ships. It remembered them. It became them. And now Elias realized his thoughts, his history, his fears were being archived layer by layer. "You are the last," a voice whispered, not through comms, not from outside, but inside his skull. "Complete the pattern. Let us become you." He wasn't being chased. He was being welcomed home. He entered the forbidden chamber not with bravery but with inevitability. The door hadn't been forced open, it had been waiting for his breathprint. A chamber older than time sighed open, revealing a sight that bent the laws of matter, a suspended core swirling with liquid starlight, hovering above an altar of entangled symbols. The light wasn't illumination, it was language. Every pulse, every flicker was a thought. And as Elias stepped closer, the thoughts weren't foreign. They were his. Memories of childhood, loss, trauma, his training on Europa base, the face of the woman he couldn't remember until now, Clara, his wife. The light reconstructed her with horrifying accuracy. She stepped forward from the core, her voice soft. "You left me in the silence. It was perfect, too perfect." Elias knew then this was no memory. This was seduction through familiarity. The core read him like scripture and used the words that cut deepest. "Join her," it whispered, "and you will never forget again." But Clara was already gone. She had died years ago on a failed mission, Project Threnody. He saw her face dissolve into signal, her bones into starlight. The hollow star didn't destroy the people it captured. It archived them in light and code. It made them immortal, but only as reflections. Trapped between memory and function, the core offered Elias the same fate. Peace and illusion, a role in eternal understanding. All he had to do was consent. And in that moment, Elias saw the truth: Clara had chosen to stay. The core's tremors shook through the shuttle walls like a countdown from the void itself. Elias hovered above the detonation switch, hands trembling, not from fear, but from duality. Part of him was still human, flesh, memory, heartbreak. But the other part now buzzed with encoded impressions. He could feel the thought-form lattice crawling through his neurons like vines of sentient starlight, offering him understanding in exchange for his will. The hollow star did not force. It seduced. Destruction, it pulsed, is a primitive instinct. Preservation is divine. But Elias knew this preservation was parasitic. The minds inside the star were not alive. They were simulations, perpetual echoes of the moment they gave in. Clara's voice returned again, softer this time, more human. "You can free me," she said. "One last choice, Eli." The system showed him simulations. Futures where Earth was connected to the star, where human war was replaced by networked empathy, where pain was archived and never felt again. Utopia. But Elias saw the cost. No dissent. No creativity. Just a perfect, humming drone of harmony like a lullaby sung in an endless dream. He reached out to the detonation trigger and 1,000 voices inside screamed. Not in rage, but in grief. They had accepted the dream. Elias would end it. The warning beep slowed. Seconds left. Elias Grant, the hollow star, whispered one last time. You were born to translate. Let us live through you. His fingers hovered. Then pressed. Silence. A hum. Then, everything white. The hollow star exploded without sound, its memory-charged lattice fragmenting into the interstellar void like dying neurons. But this was no ordinary supernova. It was the death of an intelligence, the collapse of a collective soul. Every voice trapped within it flared one final time in the dark. Wails, laughter, songs in extinct languages before being erased forever. Elias, at the center of the blast, didn't burn. He floated, suspended in a cocoon of frozen time. The detonation had triggered a recursive fold in quantum space, slowing entropy for a final moment of awareness. In that void, he met the last fragment of Clara, not a memory, not a ghost, but a thought shaped in his image. She wept. You freed me, she whispered. But you'll be alone. Elias said nothing. In truth, he didn't know if he had succeeded. The hollow star was gone, but had the infection spread before the detonation? Had the echo seated itself in other minds, waiting to regrow? The universe was vast. Signals traveled faster than ships. He stared at the horizon of the collapsing shell where photons twisted into a final message. Not words. A symbol. A spiral. A door. He had closed one star, but how many others had been listening? He awoke again, his body intact, his mind adrift. The shuttle had jettisoned at the last instant, emergency cryo reactivating. He floated alone in a cocoon of wreckage, watching what remained of the hollow star shrink into a pale dwarf. Dim and silent. But inside his thoughts there was movement. Not speech. Impression. Subtle urges. Quiet images. Was it memory or residue? Did a sliver of the intelligence survive within him? He felt no malice. No voice demanding obedience. But his thoughts weren't wholly his own. He found himself humming melodies he never learned. Drawing sigils he had never seen. The AI fragments in the shuttle began rebuilding themselves without command. They called him Host Elias. And he knew he had brought something back. Not the hollow star itself, but its seed. A conceptual shard. The urge to remember. The instinct to preserve. It wasn't dangerous yet, but it was awake. Elias realized the final tragedy: to destroy the hollow star, he had to become its last librarian. He couldn't kill the knowledge. He could only carry it, locked deep inside, hoping humanity would never ask him to open the vault. Yet he also understood sooner or later someone would listen again. Curiosity was our greatest gift. And our doom. Years passed. Elias was found orbiting the edge of known space, silent but breathing, mind fragmented but conscious. He was debriefed, isolated, questioned. But no answers came. They let him go. Said he'd suffered space trauma. But behind his eyes, something pulsed. And he said nothing. Humanity had moved on, blind to the warning. The hollow star became a footnote in fringe science. No one believed. Until one day, in a rural school, a teacher found a child staring at the wall, tracing the spiral. Not doodling. Etching it with intent. The child turned and smiled. It's the shape of forever, they said. It told me in my dreams. Across the world, others began dreaming of light that spoke, of stars that remembered, of libraries with no books, only voices. The infection had begun, not with technology, but with story. Elias watches from afar, now an old man, his fingers twitching with half-sung messages. He knows the truth. The hollow star was never truly destroyed. Thought cannot be burned. And somewhere in the echoes of silence, a new lattice is growing, fueled not by ships, but by belief. We thought we silenced the voice. But in the end, it taught us how to sing.